So, RWBY Ice Queendom, especially with episode 7, talk about an Attack on Titan level moment. I thought the symbolism in episode 7 was spot on, from the walls opening up so the train could pass through, symbolizing that Weiss was starting to open her heart up to her friends, to even letting the childlike innocence of this girl run free, to the point of showing what she's been holding away for so long, which is pretty sad, but it also shows the danger of letting that childlike innocent take over and throw a temper tantrum, become spoiled rotten, and essentially become an Attack on Titan level threat. Overall, episode 7 kind of feels like that jumpstart, the second boost, the second wind that I think this season definitely needed, because we're doing a double review here. We're mostly going to be talking about episode 7, as that's the most interesting episode in my opinion, but episode 6, while it wasn't pointless, it was a lot of setup, a lot of character moments, a lot of just showing that clearly Weiss doesn't completely hate this group, that there's clearly some love there deep down inside, and they have to come to their conclusion of how to deal with her and basically use their one last shot to save this girl. Because if they get thrown out one more time, by the time this woman recovers her abilities, it's going to be too late. This Grimm is going to take over, and the Nightmare Weiss is going to be all that's left. So I think it did a good job at kind of establishing that, shit's getting real, that things aren't working out, and ultimately they need to change the dream. And as seen by the next time they entered, things that happened before were still there, so they have the ability to change it. But it does feel to me, when I compare my initial excitement at the start of the show, the first few episodes, compared to where the last couple of episodes have left me, while I've never hated this show in the slightest, I've enjoyed every episode, to me, it was getting to the point where I was thinking to myself, I could probably do 2 or 3 episode videos, like all in one, rather than doing a week-by-week experience. It all depends on how episode 7 goes. And I watched episode 7, and basically immediately I'm like, there's no way I'm not talking about episode 8 next week as soon as it drops, because clearly this could very well be the last battle inside the Nightmare Realm, and then most likely, I imagine, the last couple of episodes would be something along the lines of 1 or 2 episodes for probably fighting, actually maybe like 1 or 2 more episodes for fighting Weiss, 1 or 2 episodes to fight the Grimm, and then maybe an episode worth of epilogue, conclusion, stuff like that. So pacing wise, I think they're on track to do something very strong here. But I like what they do, especially when you do compare episodes 6 and 7 and how they kind of hold each other's hands in order to get to this moment. It feels like a lot of characters realizing that there's a lot of hidden truths about Weiss's personality, about what she truly feels, and the idea of setting her free. It's interesting because when they said they were going to change the dream and this was their last shot, I really had no idea what they were going to do, but I thought it was brilliant to essentially beat the White Fang before the train could get taken over, so therefore, as the train's approaching, rather than it being what she's used to, once again, these horrible people steal our hard-earned money and items. Instead, it's on track to come through. You have Papa Dearest basically leering down, saying, you have all this responsibility, you have all these whispers in her ear, and you can tell how frightened she is. And the fact at the very last moment they open up the walls, I thought it was brilliant because it really goes to show that this was like the breakthrough moment. That rather than the train crashing and burning, instead she took a risk, even at the cost of potentially getting all her family to hate her, because that's how fearful she is. They went through, and for the first time it felt like they were actually making progress. I thought it was actually interesting how they detailed the fact that, because for someone like Jaune, who's already dealt with essentially the exact same thing that she's going through, to him he just kind of blends into everything else in this world. While it definitely gives like an allergy type thing, he gets itchy, he gets a runny nose, all things considered, he can do what the others can't. And I thought it was brilliant how he dealt with that gate, because the gate it's been honestly one of the most unexpected additions, because just seeing someone call you like silly or dummy and basically is a complete fool, but based on the prisoners it has, I mean, essentially it seems like Einstein. And I love how like he's like, well, if I'm an idiot, I mean, I need to go in. Makes sense. Opens up his shield so it can't close, and just to see the reaction, I thought it was brilliant. And then just to see like the breakthrough of the childlike innocence, it was kind of funny because this show has actually done a pretty good job at making me like second guess things, but not expecting them to play off of those second guesses. So when it came to all of the innocent Weisses just kind of running free, feeling like a childlike innocent, I thought it was great at first. I was like, oh yeah, look at, she's making all these robots and everything play and fight, and it's a grand old time. And I thought to myself, man, I wonder, like, is it actually good to have all these kids running free? And even, like, some of the characters were saying, like, shit, this might not be a good idea. It's hard to, in the moment, say, like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to be the worst threat we've seen so far. And then to just see how they got bigger and bigger to the point of kind of looking like a Chucky doll, in all honesty, just without the scars at certain points. And to see how it literally became like Attack on Weiss. Like, she was above buildings, crashing things, and basically, I feel like looks like what a toddler thinks they look like when they're throwing a temper tantrum. Reality, it's just a very loud, short thing. But from their point of view, they probably think, yeah, they could destroy the whole building if they don't get their cookie after dinner or whatever, right? But it was crazy because they decided to end not just on that, but rather the real Weiss just unleashing, like, I kind of felt like I was in Yu-Gi-Oh! For a minute with the way the lightning was going. Thought we were about to summon an Egyptian god card or something, and it was a really cool cliffhanger, and it kind of got me excited again because, like I said, it's not like I wanted to drop the show or anything, but it felt like with the way last week went, and even the last couple of episodes prior, I could see myself enjoying the show more in a batch format, every 2 or 3 episodes. I didn't watch last week's episode today. I watched it last week, right? I did have intentions to make a video, but I really just had nothing to say other than it's good setup. You got to see the characters kind of like suffering and feeling like they're being betrayed before coming together and regrouping for that one last hurrah. Watching that episode and then seeing this episode, it does feel like good payoff. But rather than it feeling like you could easily wait for next week's episode and watch a couple of them at once, the way they ended it and the excitement you got throughout this episode, the character progression, the big moments feeling like all of this recap or all of this like we keep going through the dream, nothing seems to be changing. It feels like it was worth it because we got to this point. I imagine it'll be 1 or 2 more episodes of fighting in the dream world and then potentially actually dealing with the demon that is, you know, this Grimm that's basically causing this ruckus before having maybe an episode worth of conclusion with whatever that looks like, obviously, right? But overall, I mean, even though I don't think it's maybe lived up to as exciting as I think maybe we initially thought with the first few episodes, I can't deny the fact that they played with the dream formula in the exact way I was hoping they would, and while the production hasn't been the best, I mean, there's a lot of rough-looking shots, all things considered. Faces go off model, and honestly, when you compare the first few episodes, it doesn't look nearly as polished as what we've got afterwards. But it doesn't change the fact that I think it is a fun-looking show with that Shaft style and charm. And I think, even though it's not perfect, I think RWBY fans are used to things not feeling perfect, and as long as it's at the very least enjoyable, for me, that's what I'm asking for, and based on what this episode delivered, it could be potentially great by the time it does wrap up. It all depends on how the final episodes go, because as it stands, intro, fantastic, amazing, pretty solid, good middle portion up to this point, and based on where they're going, could be a pretty great end goal, all things considered, which would make it a above average show, all things considered. But some people have been ripping this one a new one, other people saying it got boring. For me, it's never been boring, it's just there has been more downtime than I was, I guess, expecting. But given where the downtime ends up going for payoff with characterization in these big moments, like the group, like Team RWBY, basically coming to the realization of how Weiss probably actually feels and the reason she's pushing back. Yes, it may look bad at face glance, but the fact that she is thinking of you does show characters like Blake that there's a lot more to her than what she's letting on, so to speak. And when I compare the intro and how they handled this type of dynamic in the original series, I actually do really like how they're doing it here, and it does feel like there's a better build-up in the early stages rather than having to wait volumes in the original to get certain moments like this. But overall, really good stuff. I really, really love episode 7. Episode 6, kind of a setup episode, did what it needs to. Not gonna hype it up or anything, but episode 7, a lot of fun action, some fun comedy, but honestly just gets me excited for the remaining episodes, and that's what you want to see in later episodes in a one-core season, right? You don't want to feel like it's dwindling down like I thought it kind of was originally, but now it's just skyrocketing right back up there. But thoughts down below, either if you have any thoughts on last week's episode or this latest one. What do you hope to see with the remaining 5 or so episodes? Do let me know. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. Until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.